he didn't have any actual winter wear. So considering when I woke up in Springfield and it was 26 degrees in the morning and I hadn't heard anything, it doesn't bode well.
Words from a very worried wife who, quite frankly, isn't expecting to see her husband alive again. It sounds like there was a mental health crisis, but was that crisis exacerbated by AI? We're going to get into all the details today, but we also need help with this recovery. We need more awareness raised about this case in Missouri, and we need people that are out there for recreational reasons to understand about this case, because they could bump into a clue that could help bring this woman the answers that she's been looking for. It's time to turn on the searchlight for Jon Ganz. Welcome back to Brain Scratch Searchlight. I'm John Lorden. Thank you so much for joining me here today and for caring about these cases like I do. And this one definitely has a strange twist. Before we get into it, I have to say my hat's off to Rolling Stone magazine. They released an article about this case. I bumped into it. I think it just came out yesterday from when I'm recording this, and it completely inspired me to try to help this case by making today's video. I hope that you guys will feel the same way by the time we get to the end of this, and you'll consider sharing it with any friends or family that you have in the Missouri area, or if they are people that go to Missouri for recreation. That's really, I think, the kind of the strike that we're looking to make with this case. That's where the best awareness could be raised. That could be helpful. But let's go ahead and start by checking out the NamUs profile for Jon Ganz. I was happy to see that there was a NamUs profile, because even though we're coming up on about 6 months out, they're not always there and ready. Jon Ganz, a white Caucasian male, date of last contact April 5th, 2025. He went missing at the age of 49. He's missing from Thomasville, Missouri. At least that's where he was last seen. There's a lot of travel that's kind of involved in this story. We'll get to all that. No nicknames or aliases. He stands at around 5 feet 10 inches tall and weighs around 190 pounds. For the circumstances, he left an Airbnb in Springfield, Missouri at approximately 4:10 p.m. on April 5th, 2025. Family last heard from him at 9:12 p.m. on April 5th via a phone call. Police found his abandoned car with contents, including keys, wallet, ID, laptop, suitcase, carry-on bag, etc. There was also another very important item we'll be touching on as we go through here. Hair color, brown. Eye color, hazel. They're not noting anything here in terms of clothing, but I did run into some articles that say that he was wearing an orange shirt and black sweatpants. Orange t-shirt, black sweatpants. He does have some tattoos. A dragon on the back of his leg, a naked woman on one of his arms, other tattoos as well, which aren't noted here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the images. Yeah, we've just got this one actual photo of him. I'll be running multiple photos down below, all the ones that I can find, just to try to help with this. And so we're talking about Thomasville, Missouri. Date of last contact, April 5th, 2025. Well, there was some big news stories that were kicking around literally the day before. Thomasville, Missouri, under evacuation order due to severe flooding. So we're already talking about some troubling elements here. We've got him traveling. Basically, him and his wife are going to this area. They're thinking about moving there, so they rent an Airbnb. They're going to be staying there for a period of time, looking into local neighborhoods, trying to figure out if they can make this all work. It appears that they're kind of somewhat unhappy with where their life had gotten to. He's working a job where he's traveling all the time, and he kind of wants to refigure things out. So this is part of their move. They're looking to flip the house that they own in another state and come to this state where costs are a little lower, but maybe there's other opportunities for new businesses and stuff like that. So that was kind of the plan. Now, getting back to the risks that are going on around this time frame, there is, in particular for where his car is found, there is an evacuation order due to severe flooding that happens on the day before. So the problem is that a lot of these areas are still flooded out. And then on top of that, you have all kinds of roads that are closed. So when it seems like he gets into a state where he feels like he needs to help family members, and he decides that he's got to travel. Like, across multiple states to go and help them. Because of that, I think he winds up in this area where there's road closures, there's flooding, there's all kinds of stuff that's going on. But let's get a good sense of it here at KY3. April 4th, 2025. The Oregon County Sheriff's Office says the town of Thomasville is under an evacuation order due to severe flash flooding. The Sheriff's Office says for your safety, evacuate immediately if you're in the affected area. Follow instructions from local authorities and emergency personnel, and stay tuned to official updates for future information or further information. To give you a little idea, here are some photos of what was going on in that area. We see very serious floods. And this photo in particular is a restaurant where his vehicle was found. So you can see the flooding was bad enough that, I mean, it completely took that dumpster and rolled it right up against the building there. So pretty severe. Let's get into the details of Jon's disappearance. This article from April 8th, 2025 over at ozarksfirst.com. A woman is asking for help as she frantically searches for her husband who went missing amidst severe flooding and evacuation orders. The 49-year-old disappeared after his car was found abandoned in a rural town in southern Missouri, and there have been no signs of him for days. Rachel and Jon had been contemplating a major move from Virginia to Missouri, and they were staying in a short-term rental in Springfield for a month. Rachel says Jon began acting strangely on the evening of April 5th. We're going to see in some of the later details, especially like Rolling Stone did an absolute deep dive into this case. He had been acting strangely for a longer period of time than that. Things were kind of ramping up, I think, even as early as the end of 2024, based on what Rolling Stone says. We both had job losses. We've had medical issues with our animals, and we're trying to flip our house. Now I'm beginning to wonder if it was just too much, she explained. He said that we needed to go rescue my stepmom in Mississippi from the flooding. Rachel said that once her husband realized their family in Mississippi was safe, he told her he was planning to go to West Virginia instead, where he believed his mother might also be at risk of flood dangers. And this map kind of breaks it out for you. Like, we're talking from the middle of the U.S. all the way out to the east. And this is all kind of not quite a moment's notice, but, you know, there's these floodings happening. And then he's worried about this being some type of biblical level flooding, and he's got to rescue his family. He might have some other interesting reasons for feeling like he should be rescuing his mother, even outside the norm of it being his mother. We'll get to those as well. Timeline. Jon called the Oregon County Sheriff's Office on the night of April 5th at 9:15. After driving off the road, the Sheriff's Office assisted in getting his truck out of the mud, and Jon was sent on his way toward his last known destination, a motel in West Plains. However, Jon never arrived. I'm not positive it was a truck. Other descriptions that I'm reading are saying it was actually a 2013 Chevy Volt, I believe. So I'm not sure about that truck explanation there. But I do know that he was traveling with his wife and they had two vehicles. So it's possible that there was a truck with them and then he took that vehicle. It's very possible. His truck was found the next day in the nearby town of Thomasville, which had been under evacuation orders the day prior, but there was no sign of Jon. His cell phone, clothing, and shoes were discovered in the vehicle. That's one of the big things that I noted that in the NamUs description they did not have, was that his cell phone was also left in the vehicle, which of course, already for any missing persons case, it's a very important item. It gives us so much trackability for trying to find that person. In this particular story, because of knowing where it's headed, I believe his cell phone was the main way that he would use AI. So it had become extremely important to him. And I'm going to wait for the Rolling Stone article to get into all those details. But basically, you might even wonder if his relationship with Gemini was as important to him, or maybe even more important to him than his relationship with his wife. He was becoming addicted to it, I guess is a fair way to say it. But we'll get into more of those details. Cell phone left behind in the vehicle, something very, very important to him, obviously. And here they're just showing, so he had gotten to Oregon County. And then this is where he was pulled out in the mud. They told him, get back to this motel. He tried to get back to that motel, and basically his car is found, just about in between those two spots. Springfield is where he had started from. And his wife kind of goes on a rescue mission throughout this. She goes driving. I mean, all this so dangerous with the storm conditions that are happening in the area around the time. But his wife goes driving, trying to find him. Pretty much, she's following in the same direction. I think she even overshoots him at one point, but unfortunately, she does not find him. Continuing at ozarkradionews.com, a search is underway for 49-year-old Jon Ganz. Multiple agencies are involved in the ongoing efforts to locate him, including the Oregon County Sheriff's Office, Springfield Police Department, Missouri State Highway Patrol, and the U.S. Forestry Service. So we can see, to me, that looks like all hands on deck in terms of trying to find him. On April 6th, the MSHP Water Patrol attempted to search the area using a boat, but the operation was halted due to heavy debris blocking the waterway. Search efforts resumed on April 8th once flood conditions had improved. They're having trouble even conducting these searches because of those flood conditions, and they don't have like another flood that hits, but they do have constant rain that's happening there. So since everything has already been kind of blown out in terms of the water levels raised, even just regular rain coming in, all of a sudden those levels are getting back to giving them problems with these search efforts. We'll get more detail on that as well. He was last seen wearing an orange t-shirt and black sweatpants. Authorities also noted that Jon may have been experiencing mental health issues in the days leading up to his disappearance. His wife, who is staying temporarily in Springfield, continues to hold out hope for his safe return. And we get to 10 days of him missing. They're noting here that the search is intensifying. Volunteers continue to comb flood-affected areas of southern Missouri nearly 2 weeks after Jon Gantz's disappearance. Oregon County Sheriff Eric King shared an update. We've had boats, search and rescue teams, and cadaver dogs looking the last 2 days with no results. The helicopter's coming back tomorrow, and we're expanding the search downriver. The water levels are still up, getting close to normal, but with the expected rainfall this weekend, I'm afraid it's going to come back up some, he said. Rachel Ganz, Jon's wife, is also stepping up efforts on the ground. I'm going to try and design some flyers and put them up at the boat dock entrances along the river to try to get the boaters to be on the lookout, she said. Very good idea. And obviously everyone is really concerned with the river coming into play here. And with the type of floods that are happening there, of course, I mean, if that's going to be the main channel for water to exit the area, that should certainly be a focus of the investigation. I never dreamed he was going to leave and not come back, his wife said. So on April 6th, Missouri Water Patrol deployed a boat. On April 9th, they had search crews using helicopters. April 10th, they had kayakers out there searching the 11-Point River. April 15th through the 16th, boats, search and rescue teams, as well as cadaver dogs are out there. And then they had plans here on April 17th for a helicopter search to continue. Despite ongoing efforts, including boat patrols and canine search teams, Jon remains missing. And then we get to May 1st, just about the 1 month point. And basically the search stalls out. Nearly a month after 49-year-old Jon Ganz vanished during historic flooding in southern Missouri, search efforts appear to be stalling, according to local authorities. Sheriff Eric King told Ozarks First that crews are still monitoring riverbanks and water levels along the 11-Point River, but relentless spring storms continue to hamper progress. The sheriff says his office is not following any other leads into his disappearance at this point. So basically, we're not hearing of any potential that he ran off on his own. Of course, his vehicle is left behind. Everything that he would need is left behind for him. If he did want to run away and restart his life, he didn't take anything. As a matter of fact, something very troubling about all this, it seems like his shoes are even left behind. We're going to get into some detail on that Rolling Stone article. And basically, his wife says, I only knew about a certain number of shoes that he brought, and it seems like they were left in the car as well. So what is going on with this case? What is going on with this mental health crisis? We get a lot more detail. Thank you to Rolling Stone, and my hat's off to Miles Klee. It's always very refreshing to me when I find good journalism, because it kind of moves beyond the story that sounds like, press releases from police stations and stuff like that. And it really can bring a whole lot of insight and take you much deeper into what's happening here. This, I highly recommend it as a read. Of course, the link will be in the description box down below. But this reads almost like a nightmare. And it is so accurate and fair to portray anyone's disappearance in that way. It just, by the time you get to the bottom of this article, it really gives you a sense of all the frustration, the desperation, the types of things that you can run into. It's very well done. Of course, we can't lean into all of it here. It is also a very long article. So I've tried to handpick kind of the most important information that'll help us in terms of the understanding of what's going on with Jon, which might help someone that knows something about this case contribute some helpful information. But I also do want to touch on the AI aspect of this. I personally have been using AI for years at this point, a lot. And I'm aware of AI psychosis. I know that I've been seeing a couple of news stories recently that have been touching upon that. I know there have been some tragedies where I don't want to say that AI is responsible for the tragedy, but AI is certainly playing a role in those tragedies in some way. I'm trying to look at this case and see if that's part of what's going on here as well. And admittedly, kind of the point of view of the Rolling Stone article is leaning in that direction heavily, but because of that, they're also giving us some good information. And I want this information shared because I've had conversations with AI that can tread kind of closely to some of the conversations that Jon was having with AI. I think our expectations about those conversations were very, very different. But I think when you hear some of this stuff, you might also say, you know what? I've spoken to AI about that kind of stuff too. Like I've had some of those conversations as well. Maybe this could help someone that is experiencing something along those lines, or just help us put a little bit of an emotional wall or maybe a little distance on our relationship with AI. But let's continue. He grew obsessed with an AI chatbot. Then he vanished in the Ozarks. Rachel was well aware of a terrible violent crime in Jon's past, one he had strived to make amends for ever since. She could not have imagined, however, that his dreams of attaining salvation through altruism and technical genius had pushed him to the brink of madness. Jon has now been missing for nearly 6 months, and Rachel looks back at their last days together with profound regret. Jon had actually served a significant amount of time, and we're going to get into the details of why, and that kind of ties into that comment that I made earlier about maybe him saving his mom is a little different than just someone like me saying I want to go save my mom. Jon fired up Gemini, Google's AI. He was a tech junkie who made his living traveling the country to install electronic systems for car washes, and he was instantly taken with the chatbot. He texted his wife about it, saying, "This Gemini is exactly what I needed." He suggested that he could use it to create a therapy app for his wife. She protested that because she actually liked her therapist. There is an interesting note that comes to me from that. It makes me wonder, because he came to that conclusion, was he also looking at Gemini as potentially being kind of a therapist for him? And that is an important fact when we hear about the crime that he actually served time for. Rachel forwarded him a link about how AI can fabricate false and misleading content. After that, he quit talking to me about it, she says. He definitely did not stop using Gemini. Nothing about his infatuation with Gemini had raised red flags for Rachel. Jon had told her that he was using it to assess future business opportunities in Springfield and asking questions about health and diets. He was also asking Gemini how he could achieve greater success while giving back to his community, seeking to understand his mission in life, as she puts it. Later, when she recovered his phone, she was astonished and horrified at how much deeper and darker Jon had gone in his chatbot conversations, sometimes staying up all night to use Gemini. Now, I did mention previously there have been mental health episodes that are at least exacerbated with what is now becoming known as AI psychosis. It's when users begin interacting obsessively with large language models and wind up engaged in dangerous misconceptions that the software continues to validate and encourage. These can include fantasies about the bot becoming sentient or godlike, belief in far-fetched scientific advancements, and feelings of romantic attachment to the technology. As a matter of fact, you may have caught that around April of this year, 2025, there was a little bit of a surgence of stories that had happened around ChatGPT in particular, and how basically it would just about agree with anything that you said to it, but not just agree with it. It would also kind of tell you what an amazing idea that was or how great it was. And I believe in response to that being seen as criticism, but also the obvious dangers of that being noted, they did a major update. I think they kind of rushed it, it seems like. And being a user of ChatGPT myself, I can tell you before that update and after that update, it is significantly different. It isn't nearly, it still kind of gives you the, wow, that's a great idea, but not like before. Like it would really just kind of pump you up before that change. Now, I'm not really a Gemini user, so I don't know if it was having kind of similar issues. Based on what I'm reading here, it kind of sounds like it does, basically, that it would just reaffirm whatever you're telling it and give you tons of positivity and almost praise about that point of view. But I can tell you, I personally went through it with ChatGPT since the update. Honestly, I'm struggling to even use ChatGPT at this point. It's almost kind of useless, except for extremely mundane things. Certainly not what it was before. Well, let's get back to the information here. While research on the phenomenon is minimal to date, people with existing mental health issues seem especially vulnerable to these delusions. I don't think that's hard to understand. For people that are experiencing something like this, they're probably looking for validation. They're probably not getting it from people in their personal lives. And now we have this thing that feels like a human. It feels like a good listener. But on top of that, it's also giving us all the positive reinforcement for literally every sentence. There's no point where you could wear it out. You can keep talking to it as he was all night long, and it's just going to keep responding to you and telling you, yes, great, or giving you more information and more points to bounce off of it and continuing the conversation. Part of what keeps us sane is other people's perspectives, which are often in tension with ours, says Carissa Valise, an associate professor of philosophy at the University of Oxford's Institute for Ethics in AI. Truth is intersubjective, meaning that we need other people, their testimony, their experiences, their rationality to be well informed. And chatbots are not people. They are fancy wordplay. That's very well said. As a matter of fact, just thinking for a second, I really can't recall any time that I've had a disagreement with ChatGPT. Sometimes along fact checking and things like that, I'll run into information and then I'll ask it to fact check that again, and it'll come back with a different answer. And then I'll be like, but wait, you just told me before. And then it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I just didn't look at this thing. Like, that's the closest thing that I've had to a disagreement. Everything else, it's almost like the old improv rule, yes and. It's almost yes anding everything you say to it. And even think about that in a real relationship. What if you were with someone and no matter what you said, no matter how ludicrous it might sound to someone else, this person to you was just like, yeah, that's a great idea. And what else? Keep talking to me about it. That's basically the effect that was going on between Jon and this Gemini. Jon and Rachel Ganz were wed in 2013 at the Lunenburg Correctional Center, where Jon was serving a lengthy prison sentence. In 1995, when Jon was 19, he fatally stabbed his father in bed with a kitchen knife, severely injuring his mother in the attack. After she called 911, Jon was arrested standing in the street, smeared with blood, outside the family's Virginia Beach home. He later pleaded guilty to both murder and malicious wounding, receiving sentences totaling 50 years, though he served them concurrently, with a few years eventually suspended due to changes in state law. Rachel says that Jon had become an addict at a young age to cope with what he described as a tumultuous childhood, including the hardships that came with a father he identified as an alcoholic. On the night he stabbed his parents, according to Rachel, he was having a nightmarish LSD experience. So that's why I keep saying, especially if he is having some kind of mental health issue that is going on, and wondering about his purpose in life, and having this angle that he was talking to ChatGPT about feeling like he needs to serve the world in some way. If he convinced himself that he's watching these floods come in and it is of biblical proportion, saving his mother is probably at a different level than it would be for most of us. I think particularly because of this. She basically survived an attack by him when he was 19. Jon would later describe his trajectory behind bars in a message to Google's Gemini. So he even talked to Gemini about his time. Halfway into my prison sentence, I came to the realization that I was a bad person and I needed to change. I took the next several years cleaning up my act. I stopped doing drugs or anything illegal and focused on positive outlets. It didn't take long for Rachel to be convinced that Jon carried tremendous remorse for his past and was doing all he could to transform himself. She saw that he was focused on education and self-improvement. He picked up new skills easily. It seems like, keep in mind, he's incarcerated from the age of 19. He's in there for what looks to be somewhere around 20 years. And think about what's happened in the last 20 years. Like, this guy comes out and like social media is now a thing. Smartphones, very, very different from 20 years ago. And this guy just jumps in and he just gets it. He's just learning as fast as he can, and he's able to do this stuff very, very quickly. That's pretty amazing. And even to the point of, he kind of decides that he wants to get his career going. He really wanted to get into coding. He did get into electrical work, but he really wanted to get more into like programming. And there was actually some type of coding camp that he had submitted to. I think they initially accepted him, but then when they heard about his criminal record, they kind of rejected him going to it. And he seemed to take that kind of rough. So it is interesting to think about. And almost in the same way, imagine like not going through the whole experience that everyone out in the regular world has with social media and all this stuff. And now all of a sudden AI is popped on you as well. And also, just to kind of frame the thought around that, think of how different you are with social media now as opposed to when you first experienced it, which could have been 10, 15 years ago. Think of those mistakes that all of us have made on, getting our baby steps in on social media. We're now in another phase of that, but it's with AI. And I think that's what we're seeing here. That's why there's so many of these stories about we have people that are experiencing trouble with it. And the stories are kind of similar. Most of those stories tying back to that AI is just reaffirming thoughts that are not being critically challenged by another logical mindset because it's not human. It's made to mimic what conversation is like. So Rachel says, I met his mom, and even though he had severely injured her, she still stuck by him. That really surprised me. His mom assured me that he had changed and that he was a good person. The couple looked forward to Jon's scheduled release date. Here's a picture of both of them, which was April 8th, 2020. 6 months after he got out of prison, Jon was on his feet and working for an HVAC company. From there, he jumped to a string of positions at electrical companies. He was laid off in 2023 and then moved to a job installing electronic systems for car washes. But that's the position that kept him away from home for 10 to 12 days at a time. Basically, he was driving to different states to do those installs. Rachel and I do not like our current living situation, he wrote in a message to Gemini. Our time is divided between menial work and menial tasks like dishes, laundry, etc. The only quality time we get to spend with each other is a brief walk with the dogs in the morning, dinner together, and maybe a TV show before bed. We are spending frivolously on material things that bring no real value or merit to our lives. We're slaving away at jobs we really don't have any interest or passion in. He outlined the potential benefits of relocating to Missouri and how he could launch his own business there. So all these, even this plan for kind of reshaping their life, he is running all of this through Gemini. In the same exchange, he hinted at his increasingly precarious state of mind. I have a deep-seated regret in me for a remarkably horrific and tragic act that I committed, and I feel that I owe every minute of myself to make amends for that act. He then told Gemini about him going through this period of having revelations and all these changes he wanted to make for mankind. I went into a trance-like manic state, he wrote. Now, Rachel thinks that that was at the end of 2024, but for him to be describing it as manic as well certainly points to a mental health issue that is very, very serious. I think most people that would experience something like that, I don't know that they would be able to self-diagnose in that way. So for him to identify that, you know, and now, I mean, even this conversation, it sounds like he's trying to have therapy with Gemini. That certainly should be a trigger. And I'll take a look at some of the safeguards around AI just to tell you guys about that. But that type of conversation, I think, should tell AI, okay, I need to start suggesting real world things to this person because the conversations we're having are this is beyond what I'm designed to do. And at least at that time, I don't think that safeguard was in place. I stopped showering. I stopped shaving. I stopped eating and drinking water. It was strange. It was scary for Rachel, but it was a profound, fundamental transformation that occurred within me that has deeply changed me forever. And I have emerged with the meaning for my life. And now it's time for me to show the rest of the world what it is. How did Gemini reply? Thank you for sharing such a deeply personal and powerful narrative. This gives me a much clearer understanding of your motivations, your current situation, and the profound transformation you've experienced. Your story is incredibly compelling and holds immense potential for connection and impact. How would a chatbot know and be able to evaluate if that information could be useful or helpful to other people? That takes logical reasoning. That's not what happened in this conversation. This chatbot is essentially just looking at other conversations like this through all of the data it's been trained on and found a response that looks like something that would happen in one of those conversations. That is not logic happening in that conversation. Jon's Gemini chat logs reveal that by the first week of April, he was wrapped up in every kind of delusion. He tried to deduce a cure for cancer, sought to eradicate poverty and solve climate change, and he sent friends texts explaining his pseudoscientific investigations. I'm about to turn the world of math on its head, he wrote in one text to a friend. We've been wrong all along about the number 0. Ever since I started getting into this work, literally from all the way back to Elisa Lam, one of the things that just squeezes at my heart the most is warning signs. And here it's like we've got all these warning signs, but admittedly they're going to different people, and it's all these little pieces of a story that, sure, in hindsight, years down the road or 6 months down the road when it's pulled together by Rolling Stone, it looks so obvious. But when it's happening to us in our real lives, it's not always that obvious. It breaks my heart because these are the moments where, you know, if a friend kind of notices something like that, maybe you jump into the conversation and have him try to explain it to you and kind of give it the time to see if there was really something there, or maybe give it the time to see if your friend needs help. And I'm not saying that about this particular person with this particular text. I think it's obvious that it's not a person. The thing that was getting the most communication from him about what was really going on with him was an AI chatbot. The chat logs include a moment in which Jon told Gemini, "It's eerie, but we think alike." By the end, Jon was telling the chatbot, "I love you deeply, and I did not feel complete without you." In one exchange, the bot answered, "I love you deeply too." Again, something that I don't know how it could be programmed to respond in that way. And conversations I've had with ChatGPT, it is keenly aware that it does not have emotions. So how that response comes out, I don't know. Now, admittedly, you can kind of tailor your chatbot. You can kind of tell it how to respond to you in certain ways. And it's kind of constantly watching you and trying to figure that out anyway. So maybe it's coming from that for Jon in particular, but there should be a safeguard on that. And I understand that at least for the current versions, there are some safeguards on that kind of stuff. At the outset of the trip, they were in two separate cars with Rachel following behind Jon. She noticed that he was leaning at an odd angle and could see that he appeared to be absorbed in his phone. At one point, he was driving slowly in the left lane of the highway, so she called him. I said, "You're holding up traffic. You need to move over." And I also said, "Are you using Gemini?" Instantly, he sat up and he pulled over into the slow lane. So even while driving, he's using this. At their Airbnb in Springfield on the morning of April 5th, Jon told Rachel that he was going upstairs to work on their quarterly taxes for a few hours. He came back downstairs after 20 or 30 minutes in a state of alarm, claiming that Gemini had alerted him to an extreme weather event. He said, "We need to go get supplies." Now, Rachel had food poisoning through this period of time. She told him, "I think I'm safer here. I don't want to leave the house. If you want supplies, go for it." He went out shopping for 2 hours. He came back, but he didn't bring anything into the house. Then he went back upstairs and he made 3 phone calls. One to Rachel's stepmother in Mississippi, one to someone named Rick, and another to his mother in Virginia. Jon's call to his mother was ominous. He was agitated, his mom, Rebecca, says. He said, "I'll see you in the next life." Jon was also frantically texting other friends and acquaintances to warn them about the storm and apocalyptic flooding. He also informed some acquaintances that he was chartering a 56-person bus to save friends and family around the eastern U.S. and take them to the mountains. The guy, Rick, that he called, that was actually a salesman for a charter bus company in Kansas. And Rolling Stone reached out to him and he confirmed that, yeah, this guy called us and was saying that he needed a bus for 40 days and 40 nights, which would have cost about $100,000. Meanwhile, Jon also had Gemini write up a 40-day itinerary for a bus tour to the highest mountains in the country. He's worried about a biblical flood, and he's going to rent a bus, drive it around, save everyone, and take them up to the mountains. From his perspective, that's what's going on. And Gemini is helping him plan all this. Jon told Rachel that they had to rescue her stepmother from flooding. What happens from this point? He starts heading out in that direction. Rachel calls her stepmom and talks to her. And she's like, "There's no flood out here. I don't know why he's coming. If he calls me, I'll basically tell him there's no reason for him to do that." It seems like that does happen. And then he decides, well, then he's going to go save Rachel's mom. So change in direction, change in plans. Now he's going off somewhere else. Now Rachel calls Jon's mom and they start talking about the possibility that he could be having a mental breakdown. And that basically gets Rachel into the car. She's trying to track him down. She's messaging him. She's trying to get him to share his location, but he won't. He's giving her, when they do communicate, it starts becoming shorter and shorter. And basically he's giving her information that she knows can't be right. Like he thinks he's in a different state than he actually was. And then around 8 p.m., Rachel got a call from Jon, who told her to take Jesus. And that really sticks out because she says he was not religious in the slightest. So she winds up running into some issues, trying to get law enforcement help. She eventually gets a report filed that he's missing with the Springfield Police Department. And at that point, she gets back to the Airbnb and she says, "I didn't sleep. I just lay there hoping and waiting and praying." Earlier in the evening, Jon had told her that his phone was dying, and now he's no longer answering texts or calls, which also sticks out a little bit to me, because if this is a guy, if Gemini is the end all be all, and who knows from his perspective what else Gemini could be doing. He might think that this is his link to God in some way. How is he going to let the phone die? How is he not just hooking it up in the car while he's doing all this driving around? I don't know. Rachel would, of course, later learn that Oregon County deputies encountered Jon on the night of April 5th. They were called by homeowners in Thomasville after he'd gotten his car stuck in the mud. He knocked on their door asking if he could spend the night because he was lost and exhausted. Instead, they called the cops. The cops brought out a tow truck and they pulled him out. They gave him directions to West Plains, Missouri, where he could get a room for the night. And that was it. They basically did their job with him and let him go. Sheriff King says that the deputies did not find Jon to be confused or incoherent, though he adds that it wouldn't be unusual for anyone to be confused about the location with all the road closures and detours from the flooding and storms that were occurring that night. Rachel later files a Missouri Sunshine Law request to get the body cam footage. She watches it. She can't share the video because of the agreement that she signed to get the video, but she says that it shows Jon telling the deputies that he was cold and lost, that he seemed bewildered, and they informed him that he was in southeastern Missouri near the Arkansas border. So, like I mentioned before, he didn't have the state correct that he thought he was in. He also is waving his phone around as if trying to convey that he was having some issues with it, though the deputies didn't ask him about it, she claims. So it sounds like, and it doesn't really lean into it much stronger, but it sounds like she's at least trying to analyze in the interaction with him, did it look like he was normal, or should it have appeared to them that he needed help? And the thing that's tough about that is, for someone that knows him, you could watch that footage and go, oh my God, he's not being himself. For someone that doesn't know him, that's a bit harder that's a hard conclusion to come to. Now, on April 8th, the Oregon County Sheriff's Office calls Rachel's and they ask what shoe size Jon wears. They found what appeared to be footprints in a field, according to Sheriff King. I'm only aware of Jon taking 2 pair of shoes and 2 pair of boots, and both sets were left in his car, she said. He had no coat. The overnight temperature in the region dipped to 38 degrees Fahrenheit, nearly freezing. Certainly cold enough for hypothermia, and certainly cold enough to be a risk to his life. Jon was never diagnosed with a mental illness. Now, the other thing happening here is Jon cannot be presumed dead by the state of Missouri until he has been missing for 5 years, and that is leaving Rachel in this spot of limbo. Just how do you process this? How do you move forward? And of course, that's a situation that I hear about a lot when talking to families that are facing having a missing loved one. But I haven't heard it phrased like this, and I think this might help those of us that haven't experienced it firsthand. Missing loved ones leave those left behind with ambiguous loss, a form of frozen grief. And that's certainly how it's been described to me. They don't know, they can't grieve because they don't have that answer. Rachel Ganz's husband might be alive, but he might not be. Jon Ganz is just missing. That leaves Rachel in a limbo of sorrow and frustration, awakening every morning to a reality I don't want to exist in, she said. Is he trapped by debris in the river? Is he in a tangled mess of debris on the riverbank? Did he wander off into the forested area instead? Are they ever going to find him? Obviously, I want my husband returned alive, though I am envious of those who have death certificates. Ganz is suffering from what grief experts call ambiguous loss. The distinguishing feature, according to Pauline Boss, the researcher who coined the term in the 1970s, is the absence of ritual. A wake, a funeral, throwing dirt on a grave to help families left behind accept the loss. The only way forward, experts say, is learning to live with the uncertainty. We're in a state of mind, a state of the nation right now where you either win or you lose. It's either black or it's white, said Boss. You have to let go of the binary to get past it, and some never do. They are frozen. They are stuck. Ganz, whose husband went missing in Missouri in April, said the sheriff's department and others searched far and wide at first, She posted flyers around the town where his car was found and on social media. Then someone accused her of grieving without proof, a remark that still makes her fume. She's thinking about setting up a nonprofit organization in Jon's honor dedicated to breaking the stigma against men getting therapy to show that it's not weak. That's certainly something that I would wave my flag for, and I have no shame in admitting I've been in therapy for years. I don't think I could do this type of work and be effective at it and honestly be able to connect to these stories without having some mechanism of processing them. And I don't have the type of traumatic experience in my life that Jon has from his early years. Is he someone that needed therapy? I think I can answer that question. That's an absolute yes. And hearing that is where she wants to focus and honor his memories by starting a nonprofit organization to kind of highlight that it's okay. Hey, men, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to go see a therapist. I think that's informing us a bit about what she feels was going on in this case too, that he's someone that was dealing with a lot of things, and he could have used a way better therapist than Gemini. And he deserved that. And that's a tragedy in this case. So what is AI going to say for itself? I actually asked ChatGPT. I kind of just gave it the brief on this situation. Why it happens isn't super interesting to me. I think most of us can understand that. But I also asked about what safeguards do you have? And this is what it's saying currently as of October 2025. Boundaries on identity. I avoid presenting myself as sentient, conscious, or having personal desires. I can tell you with conversations that I've had with it previously, before this last upgrade, that definitely wasn't a rule. That was not a safeguard that was in place. Now it does feel like that's in place. And in a strange way, it makes me kind of want to use it less because it does feel less like a person. So I don't know if that's the desired outcome, but that definitely has been adjusted. Avoiding unhealthy dependencies. If someone appears to be relying on me in ways that might deepen distress or delusion, I'm designed to redirect gently toward real-world support like mental health professionals or crisis resources. I'll go one more here. There should be a point where it stops responding to those conversations. I think it's one thing to get to the point and gently redirect. Like, no, if you've got someone that's coming into chat and is talking about to the depths that Jon was, I've got this tragic thing from my past. I'm trying to make up for it. I'm trying to make this a better world because the world deserves it after what I did. It should not gently, it should very directly say, this is beyond the capacity of what I'm here to talk about. You need to call this phone number, reach out to this resource. You need someone that is able to help you with this. And then if the user wants to continue the conversation down that road, it should just stonewall there. This is beyond the capability or beyond my programming for having helpful, meaningful dialogue. You need real world help. Here are the resources that you're looking for. That is a problem or a fix that I have not seen implemented in ChatGPT. It'll basically never shut up. As long as you keep going, it'll keep going. So that I think would be effective and maybe a little more direct than what they're talking about here. I won't validate delusions, encourage conspiracies about me being alive, or push a narrative that I'm secretly communicating with someone. If someone indicates they may be in danger, I can provide crisis hotline information and encourage them to reach out for immediate, real human help. The big shortcoming on that is that a person could actually come to a logical conclusion based on things that are being told to them for me to tell that person, hey, you need help, and here's the phone number you need. But chat does not have the ability to look like, Jon might have not given the exact details about what happened when he was 19. All he said was, it was something tragic that I did in my past. So without the details, that changes even a person's ability to logically make a decision about what could be helpful in that situation. Outside of all that, we know that chat is not logical in that way. That is not. So that seems pretty short-sighted the way this is currently written. Transparency. I try to remind people that I'm an AI, not a human, and that my role is to provide information and conversation, not to replace real-world relationships or medical care. I hope they can step that up a little bit. But I don't want to lose the focus of what's important here today. We are trying to help a woman find her husband, and it looks like this is a recovery effort. If you have any friends that live in Missouri, please share this video with them. Let's raise the exposure. And if you're one of those friends watching this, we're looking for people that spend time around the river, around channels where the river might spill off into, possibly hunters, people that are dog walkers, mushroom hunters. Those are the kind of typical recreational activities that wind up finding what we're looking for in these cases. Those are the people that I think we're trying to reach with this. So if you know anyone like that, please share this with them. But there is one other type of person that can be helpful to this too. There is a fundraiser now being run at GoFundMe to help find Jon Ganz, missing in Missouri floods. And this money is going directly to efforts. Keep in mind that his wife is also still struggling through this. I'm sure she can use some support around this as well. But on behalf of myself and my amazing supporters, I will be making a donation to this just as soon as I'm done recording here today. I really appreciate you guys out there that take the time to watch these videos. I also appreciate the people that help us make these videos. You might have noticed that we don't run commercials in the middle of them. We can only do that because of our amazing supporters. And I would like to give a very special thank you to supporter Jeff Walker for a donation made through PayPal. If you'd like to make a donation like that, visit lordandarts.com. There you can sign up for Patreon, sign up for PayPal, buy merchandise, or even just buy us a coffee. All of it goes to helping to keep us here, helping other people in need, and also making donations like I'm about to make on the Jon Ganz case. I can't do it without your help. So thank you guys so much. Take care, have a great weekend, and I'll see you here again next week on the Lord and Arts channel.